Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, City of Somerton work session. We're gonna go straight to roll call, then start with the presentations.
Mayor Gerardo Anaya,
Present.
Vice Mayor Luis Galindo, Councilmember Jesus Roldan,
Present.
Councilmember Miguel Villalpando, Councilmember Juan Castillo, Councilmember Marta Gonzalez, Councilmember Lorena Delgadillo. Mayor, the quorum is not met, but one is not needed for tonight.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today's presentation, we're going over the CIPs for the city's proposed options for the ARPA funding and the revenues for the city budget. After reviewing all the areas presented, I'm asking for the Mayor and Council's direction on what the priorities of the upcoming fiscal year in order to complete the city's balanced budget. First up will be the CIPs for the city. The CIP budget line item, I'll go through all the departments that submitted CIPs. All these items were included in the presented budgets for each department in the previous work sessions. Enterprise fund CIPs are not included in this presentation. They were included in their previous presentation with the Public Works Department's budgets. So they are included, and more of those projects are CDBG funded, or they're already processing the project, and they'll be done by the end of this fiscal year. So what you have in front of you is the CIPs for 2025 that have been proposed. The first block would be the 0.8% tax projects that are under Mayor and Council. We have one as the welcome sign, which is estimated to be a cost of $21,180. The second item is an arched sign, the Welcome to Somerton sign, which would anticipate about $300,000 for that budget. The next line item for the CIP would be courts. There is a funded obligation for ARPA funding. Their balance of that fund would to be rollover to 2025 would be $37,498. And that's for court security system. And they were budgeted this year. They used a small portion of it. So that rollover would go next year. The next line item would be economic development. They were proposing to get a new vehicle, which was a 2022 Ford Explorer for $38,000. They also have two line items in their budget for land acquisition for the city purposes and a facade improvement program, which is a loan improvement program. And that is, the first one is $300,000 and the second one is $10,000.
What funding source is that Ford Explorer coming out of?
Funding sources would be general fund. Parks and Recreation, they have several line items. The first one is Paracone Park improvements. Partial funding would come from the Arizona Parks grant for $300,000, and the matching funding would be $200,000. That is an ongoing project, but at this point, we've only expended about $20,000, and we're anticipating that to roll over to fiscal year 2025. City Hall's AWC leased improvement space, the initial project was to take Parks and Rec Department and place them in the leased area in the corner of City Hall. They were going to need some improvements in there in order to get them up and running. That is anticipated for a total of $85,000. That is also general fund. Youth center improvements, removing walls, open space for group activities. They are proposing a $40,000 CIP to do that project. General funded as well. Underground APS power lines at Centennial Park. This is a project that's also ongoing. The majority of it is going to be done by June 30th of this year. But they have a slight amount of $10,000 that might roll over to fiscal year 2025. Culture Center improvement building that needs improvements to keep up with activity demands. This is proposed at 120,000. Funding sources would be general fund. Centennial Park fencing, going into a wrought iron fence, is 40,000, which is also general funded. And then another vehicle request for a Silverado, 1,500 for 50,000. This is also a general fund. The next line item would be fire and ambulance. Their first up is a replacement truck. They have a 2010 F-250. They're proposing to upgrade that and replace that truck for 91,000. This includes the lighting package. So the amount that is proposed is the vehicle plus the lighting package. And then the next item is actually fire and police CIP to replace the carpet. This is also general funded. This was also on the CIPs for this fiscal year and did not happen. So it's going to be rolling over. The next item is police, which has the DEMA grant has several items. There was not a lot of space to put like all the items that is included in this DEMA grant. So it's office equipment, police equipment, and all of that is funded through the DEMA grant. I had a meeting with the police department and most of that funding is rolling over. Mobile printers and the oximeters. This again is an additional DEMA portion of the grant. They submitted a grant, they got awarded, and then a little time later, they got awarded again for this 207,000. This procurement process has not been submitted or nothing's really been procured yet. So this will roll over to fiscal year 2025. The camera project for the police grant, this is for Arizona DPS, local border support. This grant is 63,600. They're procuring those items and going out for bid, but this will roll over to fiscal year 2025. And then the Bay facility, this was a rollover from last year to this year to going to the next year. And this was the ARPA funds that were obligated for this Bay facility for the police department. Animal control, they are asking because of the extensive animals that they have. They're asking for renovations of the kennels. They're old. They need to be replenished to make sure that the animals are secure and safe. So this is asking, this item is asking for 70,000 out of the general fund. And then the animal shelter remodel. They are also asking for remodeling the building, which is the 50,000 out of the general fund. Community development is asking for a new truck, the Tahoe, for 55,000. And then also, we also have the development impact fee study upgrade that usually is done every few years. So it needs to be renewed, and that is 100,000 from the general fund. The last item on this is IT. As presented through the IT budget, they're in need of a vehicle for the IT department. So they are proposing 31,900 for the IT department for funding a vehicle. So overall CIPs are $3,663,239.74. 50,000 of that is in 2024 is being processed as a project for this year. And then the rest of it will be rolling over to fiscal year 2025. And then that's 1.7 million that will be rolling over to 2025. And then 1.9 is grant funded. Any questions on these CIPs or any,
Are all those the CAPs that we're gonna have?
these are all the CIPs that were proposed. Right now, we're still working off of a non-balanced budget, so that doesn't mean that all of them are going to be funded.
Yeah, there's some that I didn't see that like the lake was, is there somewhere there?
So that's the next one. That's the next presentation.
Okay, that's for ARPA or for?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I have a
yeah.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the mayor and council, the 0.8 tax, the welcome sign and all. What's the current balance on that? I know we have a line item for that 0.8 tax. What's the, if we're spending the 321,000, what will be?
So unfortunately, previous finance distribution did not pull out that 0.8. So I cannot give you a balance.
Oh,
But I can go ahead and muster up a balance. Whether it's there or not, I can't give you that information,
in
but I can get back to you.
prior years, this is something that as a council, we decide, this is a project we want to do with that money. That's why
Correct.
I asked. Alonso.
And Mayor, if I may, Shona, could you share, what we're projecting for next year's 0.8?
Sure. So the next year's 0.8, if you look on your, well, it's on the revenue side, and we'll go into that a little bit more in detail. But this next year's revenue anticipated from the sales tax, the 0.8, it will be $746,667.
Mayor, and just to let you know, I mean, there is, I believe, in direction from mayor and council that there is a split there, and some of it's used for debt services and some of it's used for projects. So that'll be something that we'll look for direction from mayor and council.
Yeah, City Hall was 0.8, the debt payment for it.
Any more questions on CIPs? So I'll go into the next presentation for state and local fiscal recovery funds, which are the ARPA funds that we got back in 2021, I believe it was. I wanted to present some projects to reallocate project funds and propose to reallocate project funds in order to close out this grant, because this grant does have a deadline. And some of the projects have been a little hindered. The Bay project, I know it has to do with property, and some of those might extend a little bit further. So my original projects, you'll see on the slide that it had the court systems for 45,000, the community center expansion for 750,000, the water take project for 2 million, you have the Bay Garage for 150, and the Parkview Pond for 1.5. As of right now, the balance of those funds are 4.7. If you notice that the balance comes out, the premium pay that was paid, what I'm suggesting is, or proposing, is if with the water tank came out at 2.6 instead of 2 million. And that was not budgeted for. So my suggestion, it's the same project. It falls under the ARPA, restrictions and the spending. So this is my proposed option, is to pay off the water tank. The Parkview Pond, we have already used 391,000 of that, which is the design from last architects. And the balance on that line item would be 308,000. The court security system, as I stated before, that they've used a little bit of that 45,000, which is 37 now. That's gonna roll over and to remain to keep that 37. And then if you would like to keep the bay garage on there as well, again, that's kind of trying to present it to get some type of direction. And you'll still have a balance of the 962,000 for the ARPA that we can still allocate to another project or the project those are in there. Just to kind of get a reallocation of some type of movement on the projects. I know the council's direction, mayor's and council's direction has been to close out these CIPs that we've had. So that's kind of the direction that I'm kind of pushing for, to close some of these funding sources with those CIP projects.
So with paying off the tank, we would take money from the community expansion and
Correct. And then also, some of these projects have not been started. So moving forward to try to fund the projects that we already have in place and are continuing to work on, and closing those out and finding other funding sources for the projects that we haven't completed yet or haven't even started.
questions or comments?
Any questions?
No?
So the next slide is our revenues. General revenues are anticipated to be $15,309,975 for general and grant revenues. Out of those general and grant revenues, anticipated $3,080,003 for the annual sales tax
Sean,
revenue.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Those ARPA funds, are we sure that the pond can be, those funds can be used for the pond? Because when we first got them, they were very restrictive, but I know it's changed, so I just want
Yeah,
to
they have a
ensure
lot
that.
of open items for that. I did have, when our grant writer was here, to check into all of those projects to ensure that they correspond with the regulations, and they did.
Okay, yeah, because at that time, it was only for public safety or shelters and,
Yeah.
okay, so I just want to ensure that we're not. Okay.
Any more questions on the ARPA? The general revenues, so our anticipated annual sales tax for fiscal year 2025 is $3,080,003. I used an average of what our 9-month average is now. I multiplied that by 12 to get an anticipated total. Out of this revenue, $746,667 would be the additional 0.8 project money, which was formerly directed that half of it was going to debt and half of it was going to projects. So that's how we'll carry on, unless otherwise directed to do so.
It wasn't half, it was just identified, like City Hall was identified for, but not necessarily half. It
Okay, okay.
was certain,
It
I recall
didn't,
City Hall and I don't know what else.
And the other one's just projects.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I may, I believe, and that's something we wanted direction from you, is I believe it was that whatever debt payment was for that specific loan or bond that was provided for the city
For
hall.
City Hall, yeah, for City Hall, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it wasn't half and half.
What's the amount that we pay for on that? You guys know?
that is, the last time that I looked, it was almost 397,000, I believe it was.
Close to half.
Almost close to half. Yeah.
Okay.
The estimated amount for vehicle license tax, state sales tax, and state shared income revenue is estimated as $6.7 million. That comes from the estimated ledgers of the League of Arizona, so they gave me those figures. We also have the HERF revenue, which is for our streets division. That's coming in at $5.6 million. And then as stated before, the ARPA funding is set, and if we do not change anything, the rollover is going to be 1.4 million. Enterprise funding is included. Water, sewer, wastewater amounts would be 5.6 million. This also includes the CDBG funding because the majority of that CDBG funding is allocated to our Public Works Department, whether it be water, whether it be streets. So that does include that 300 to 400,000 that we get every year. So the overall revenues coming in will be $25,636,309. That's what we're looking at to move into fiscal year 2025. And I just want to let Mayor and Council know that these are very conservative measures on revenue, just to keep our budget as balanced as we possibly can. Any questions? Well, again, we have not come to a balanced budget yet, and I'm asking for direction from council to see what the priorities are for mayor and council in order to move forward to try and balance this budget.
Well, we do have the grant for the downtown redevelopment, so that would be, and the additional funds from the 0.8, so we can include the arch there and that section, whatever phase we choose, either state intersection or the Somerton Avenue intersection. But we have that funding, and also the on the vehicles, it was mentioned that if we could find a solution, seems that every department is asking for one, if we could maybe discuss on pool vehicles or something, because maybe that, and but other than that, I think everything pretty much has been what has been discussed. I don't know if the Xeriscape is under CIP or what funding source are we using for, because we wanted every year we established a program that we were gonna transfer some of the retention basins to Rock and Xeriscape.
So that project was included in the Parks and Rec budget,
Okay.
and they have a line item in regards to that.
That also part of the districts, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
The property tax is included in our general revenue, so it is part of this revenue that I'm.
So when you
presenting.
said the ARPA funding has a deadline, right, for spending?
Correct.
What's the deadline? Do you have any-
2026, December, I believe it is.
Yeah, so we got to start that pond as soon as possible, because before the design, and we're probably gonna be building it late next fiscal year, so we're not gonna expend other funds.
Mayor, if I may, and then we'll be getting an update. We actually have a meeting scheduled for the process of the construction process for the pond, which is going to be outlining, cost estimates and construction estimates to come back to mayor and council, and then we can get that moving forward. But we're hoping by next month that design or infrastructure should be completed.
Another been discussions about the museum. We're gonna at least start design this year. Is it there?
We'll add that, Mayor.
Another thing that council has discussed, but we never formalized anything, and I don't know what the mechanism would be, but would be the money we're getting from Parkview sales, that it can be utilized for development of that area, like the pond, whatever the conceptual plan was, so it can be at least when we get those funding dedicated to that area to enhance that area.
And just be advised, Mayor and Council, that the general revenues does include the sales of the lots according to what I gotten from economic development's sale prices.
So is there a way that we can allocate or separate those revenues
We
in
can-
order to
we
use
can-
to that?
We can
that area?
separate them, yes. It'll just bring down the total revenue for overall.
and whatever phasing staff decides on how to move forward with a conceptual plan, maybe a 10-year plan or whatever we come up with.
Will be like a wash kind of type, right? Money come in, money spent, so it will not affect the general fund, right?
In a sense.
Kinda-
yes.
kinda,
In a sense.
yeah.
That's not how Shona thinks.
Yeah.
He's like, oh.
Well, there's gonna be debits and credits.
That's
shown
for a
there.
later, that's for a later discussion.
And journal entries.
I think you have a better poker face than the other one.
You see what I'm talking.
Any other questions or comments? Garavis?
Mayor, and Councilman, we're gonna look at these. We have to look at the expenditures, of course. So, I think, what I'd like to do is start meeting, with council members and kind of reviewing this a little bit more in detail, and with Shona and seeing how we can get to a balanced budget. As you noticed, our FY 2024 compared to our FY 2025 has decreased because there is some, funding that, from the state and just, services that the city provides, has decreased. But that's because we're being very conservative and making sure that we're moving forward. So we're gonna look at all angles, or options, I should say, on the funding sources, what we have coming in, looking at phasing projects that will provide funding opportunities for the future. Also, we're going to look at other options for mayor and council on these projects. May it be, with grants or maybe bonds or different options. We'll provide that to mayor and council. So there is some options if you decide to go forward. There is some debt payments that are sunsetting. So we're going to take that in consideration and provide that information to you. We're still working on that, but we want to hopefully get that to you when we start meeting with everyone and provide a better picture.
And phasing is important, and if we can start working towards a 5-year CIP plan and at least for that park, maybe a 10-year and something that's realistic. And like I mention every year, at least for me, the most important thing is the capital improvement projects, because that's what we're here for. That's what at least our residents ask for, infrastructure. And when we, especially during budget season, the expectation is for these projects, if we say we're going to construct them this fiscal year, that they are constructed, because there's limited funds. There's always a tug of war, and the expectation is for them to be constructed. So I ask staff to really look at the schedules and make sure that realistically we can do what we're saying. If it's construction, then that we are constructing it. If not, there's no, we can transfer it to the next fiscal year, but at least it's better to underestimate the scheduling than do a good project then. So then not expand like it happened other years. Even this year we had some director changes and everything. So, but at least I'm asking the city manager to make sure that that those are done. If we haven't scheduled and budgeted, then we need to expand those funds. And we those that are involved in construction know that there's delays, there's expected delays. So just be realistic with it. No project is done at the actual ultimate schedule. So. Other questions?
Just a question. So now after all the expenditures that you see and everything, how the contingency looks like, the fund balance?
I would prefer to talk directly in specifics at a later date.
Okay, please, the general fund.
Do we have also the, some of the lots we have identified purchasing there here?
It's on the revenue, it's under economic development revenues. It states, oh, no, you had it on there. It's off to the notes, it says lot sales 3, 6. and
But
4.
the ones that we've discussed, possibly
That's cash
acquiring.
flow. That's cash flow already in. Oh, no, the
Acquiring.
acquiring. It's a line item for economic development. That's the 300,000.
Okay. Is there a question? No? Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it over?
That's it.
6:30, meeting's adjourned.
Yeah.
Next year,
Que
we're
se va a
gonna
acabar a las
have
10, so I
everything in
cannot
one.
go to do any.